Hello everyone, before we get started, I just remind you this episode is brought to you by our patrons like Achaea Comics, Blacklist OG, Qua, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Denton, Nestor Flores, Rogue Robin, Shawnee P, some guy named Bob, Soda-san, 0424, and Video Gamer 75. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it really helps us out. Thank you for your support, everybody. Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll a 5-star, or sometimes a 4-star, or maybe, as you've guessed, a limited 3-star, whatever. Shush yourself, okay? Hi though. Let's Talk FGO Wanted. It's a show about new units, and sometimes old units. Really, it's a show about whatever I feel like it is. Sometimes it's by me, Omega, but sometimes you'll also hear that guy Lucky. It's a whole thing, okay? Let's just stop beating around the bush. It's gonna be about Achilles, okay? It's about Achilles today. Because, as of the time we're recording anyway, the APOC collab is right around the corner, which will feature some wonderful things, wonderful fun stuff. Not the least of which is going to be good old Achilles. Achilles. He has a lot of epithets. He's kind of a big deal, but we'll talk about that in a second. Because first, I need to break this down for you, in case this is your first time watching a Wanted, alright? If it is, thank you so much for tuning in. We've done, this is 47, so there's a lot of these if you want to check back on a unit in the past, okay? But, Achilles is going to be a new permanent rider. It's been since, well, he's AoE, so it's been since Drake, I think? Yeah. It's been since Drake Drake is the last permanent rider. Who is AoE, I believe? Am I missing something? Yeah, because Ivan and Iskandar are both AoE, but they're limited. Achilles is going to be permanent. That's cool. It's real neat. And we'll talk about how all that works out in a second. But, well, with a character like Achilles, you got a lot going for him. And we will break it down what he's got going for him in multiple segments, which is what I'm getting at. So, first up, we talk about a character's real-life history. Whether that's their actual real-life history, if they were a real person, or their, various real-life legends, histories, and lores. Then we talk about their Fate lore with a capital L. Talk about what they do in Fate, if they've been in other works, any weird uniqueness about their Fateness, etc. And usually we use this to relate to people who are, showing up in various things. Sorry. Still a little early. Clear my throat. I'll be okay, though. Then we talk about their mechanics, so obviously what mechanically does a unit do? That bit, right? And lastly, we talk about their rarity, aka how frequently their raid-ups are. Though, obviously, I can't make a joke that they're still a rarity, because that actually is in question sometimes, But primarily, it's about how frequently their raid-ups are, because even with a permanent, while you can occasionally get a spook, and some people get spooked more than others, there is still the question of, what if I really want to try for Achilles, though, So, with that all out of the way, we got a lot to talk about, so let's not linger too long in any one sector, alright? Okay. Well, so first of all, talking about real-life history, Achilles is the greatest of all Greek warriors, the central character of the Iliad, and one of the biggest deals in classical mythology. So, we probably, are gonna do the ultra high level here, because there is a lot to dig into. I don't know if it's possible in a simple, short, hopefully under 30 minutes Wanted video to cover all of these things, alright? So, we're going to give you the Cliff Notes version. A lot of good old fun stuff. So, Achilles is the son of Peleus, who was a king, and the Nereid, which are the daughters of the sea god Nereus. There's an EU in there. Who is a deity specifically of the ocean. So she is some sort of mythos creature, a minor deity, basically, of the water. So, hey, he's part divine. It's right in there. But another important thing about his mother, other than that she was notable for both Poseidon and Zeus wanted to bang her, but she was like, nah, brah. Possibly because of a prophecy, but also maybe because Thetis the water nymph, was tight with Hera and was just like, nah, bruh. But she did an important thing. in certain versions of the mythology. I should note that this is not necessarily referenced in the Iliad. In the actual Iliad, Achilles gets injured a few times. Like, he actually gets hurt and bleeds, like a real boy. But in later mythological ads, which, hey, guess what? Achilles is super popular. A lot of stuff was added to him later, such as the Achilles and other such works, epic poems, and later plays, lots of other stuff. We'll talk about that at the end. That Thetis dipped Achilles in the river Styx, the river of hatred, in the underworld, which granted him invulnerability of body everywhere except the heel where she had to hold on to him. In another version, which is closer to what Fate describes, she painted his body over with ambrosia, the stuff of the gods, their food and drink, and then put him on a fire to burn away all the mortal parts of his body, but she was interrupted partway through, so only most of his body is immortal. This will come up later. That gives the famous Achilles heel or Achilles tendon, the Achilles tendon actually in your foot, which are anecdotes which survive to this day. Like, literally, that tendon in your foot is called the Achilles tendon. Sorry, cough break. But, yeah, so later works added that he was invincible, in a certain sense, now that he wasn't already decked out, because as a servant, Achilles has a shitload of noble phantasms. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But he was also decked out in all kinds of stuff because, I don't know, I guess the gods really liked Achilles, or they really liked Thetis, because it was like, hey, you're going to need some armor and a shield made by Hephaestus. You're going to need all this other stuff. Great stuff. Achilles was trained by the centaur Chiron, who is also going to be added as a permanent unit, but we'll talk about him in regular Let's Talk FGO. So, this gives him a lot of his, training and warfare and stuff, part of the reason probably why he's so cool. Also, by the way, I can't find a lot of other references to why Achilles is treated as super fast. He has super speed in Fate. Yeah, that's one of his things. I know, I'm blending the two, but it's hard not to. But apparently there was one version of this where his heel was injured, and Chiron transplanted the heel of a super fast giant onto Achilles. So that might explain why he was super fast. Super fast ankle. But yeah, so that's kind of the big artillery of his life. There's another anecdote that he was hidden once to keep him safe from the war in the kingdom of Skyros. They disguised him as a girl under the name Pyrrha, the red-haired girl. So obviously at some point in his life, Achilles was a little soft-looking. While disguised as a girl, he totally banged, though. That's where his son, Neoptolemus, a.k.a. Pyrrhus, comes from. But Odysseus learns that he's hiding, and they can't beat Troy without Achilles' aid, so he goes there and does a shenanigans. He disguises himself as a seller of goods, selling women's clothes and jewelry, but also has a shield and spear, and so Achilles takes the shield and spear, and Odysseus is like, You Achilles, come with me. And then there's the actual Iliad, the Trojan War, all the lots of big stuff. Again, there's many, many tellings, many, many add-ons, many extras, such as his conflict with Penthesilea, Queen of the Amazons, stuff like that. That's kind of an extra. Some other things. The core stuff we're going to talk about is that Achilles is the coolest dude in the Achaean. Is it Achaean? I guess it is Achilles, so it would be Achaean army. He's the coolest dude. He's winning all the battles. He's the bestest. Beating up everybody. Until there's a little bit of a problem. So Agamemnon, the commander, is kind of a doofus. He takes a girl as a slave, but her dad's a priest of Apollo, and when they don't give her back, Apollo sends a plague amongst them, so they have to give him back, and then Agamemnon is like, okay, hey, Achilles, you got a battle prize. You captured a girl who you like, Briseis. And he's like, give me that one. And Achilles, urged by his mommy, is a little pissed off at this, and so he's like, okay, I'm not going to fight, and my men won't fight. So he sits in his tent, which is a trope name. And then he basically sits out for a while, and is kind of a sassy boy. But then Achilles' buddy, his childhood friend, Patroclus, puts on his armor and pretends to be Achilles, but is killed by Hector. Achilles becomes 200% mad at this and beats the heck out of everybody. He just goes on a full-blown raging and fights everybody. He even fights a minor river god's commander who is upset Achilles is clogging his rivers with blood. Achilles will not be stopped. He chases Hector 3 times around the city of Troy before Athena cons Hector into stopping, and then Hector's like, well, I guess we gotta fight, and then Hector loses. and then Achilles is so mad that he rages around, drags his body around the city. He's a big deal in this moment, but they eventually get him to kind of go back, and he does eventually relent and start Hector's funeral. Now, the Iliad doesn't actually directly portray his death, but the simplest version is that basically he's super mad, right? He's real ticked off. He's raging. He's gonna break the city. And in fact, I should have mentioned this earlier. Apparently, in that rage period, he was so mad that the gods had to restrain him because he would defy fate and destroy Troy early. They had to hold him back. But basically, the time has come, and Paris, Prince of Troy, shoots Achilles with an arrow. The arrow is poisoned, and also Apollo guides the arrow to strike him in his one vulnerable point, at least in most traditions, and he is slain. And then there's a couple of other different versions. There's a lot of different guesses about Achilles post-death and pre-death, about who he likes, who's his girlfriend, because he did bang that chick while he was disguised as another chick. According to some accounts, he actually got with Medea, so they got to be together when he died. And other times, he was going to marry a Trojan princess, but Paris was a dickhead about that and shot him. So he gets shot a lot. Now, the other thing I think that's good, besides just the general effect that, man, that guy has had a lot of impact on, what would we say, social consciousness, creative works after, plays, philosophy. The philosopher Zeno started the tortoise and the hare thing by basically Achilles and the tortoise. Lots of other things. That's how fast he was. But a little end tip though is what happened to his armor after he died. There was a little bit of a discussion between Ajax the Greater and Odysseus over who would get the armor. So Athena cursed the shit out of Ajax, because Odysseus was the coolest, and Odysseus got the armor, and eventually he gave it back to Neoptolemus. There's also apparently a fun anecdote that appears on pottery that Ajax and Achilles were playing a board game, and they were so engrossed in it that they didn't realize the Trojans were attacking their camp, and Athena had to warn them. That's funny. But yeah, that just goes to show you he has appeared in so much art, so much literature. He's in, the Inferno. There's also many novels about him and homages. A very popular subject of architecture, of visual arts, of film, music. He's kind of a big deal. So let's talk about him in Fate real quick. Most of that is true. I did mention earlier that they go with the in a fire relevant, not the river Styx. Not sure why, probably because that means they didn't have to fuck around with depicting the underworld. I don't know. But, decently enough. He's super fast. He has a special spear. He's invincible. He has a chariot that's super fast and can fly. He can make one-on-one duels, and also he has his bitchin' shield, also made by Hephaestus. He's crawling with noble phantasms. But other than that, I don't think there's anything super big to talk about in the lore. Other than just to mention that, obviously, if you're wondering, hey, where's a major depiction of Achilles? Well, he was one of the major servants in Fate Apocrypha, if you haven't looked at that, either in animated form or in light novel form. And I know some people don't like the anime, but at least animation-wise, it has some very, very wonderful treatment of Achilles. You get to see a lot of his good going stuff there. He also appeared in Alexander, young Iskandar's interlude earlier. They had his sprayed out. Obviously, he will appear as a character in the upcoming APOC collab. Other than that, I don't think he has a lot of major appearances, But he is a permanent character, so he will be able to show up occasionally to, talk about stuff with you. And so there's not really any major differences we need to get into that we can't talk about with some of his stuff, because, hey, guess what? Remember I said he has all those noble phantasms? That's entirely how they built his kit. So, why don't we go ahead and jump into his kit? Alright, so, mechanically. Alright, so Achilles, SSR Rider, a new permanent one after Drake. Where does he stack up in raw stats? Pretty good. He's currently in 3rd place for max attack of Riders, just under Oz and just over future unit Europa. Comparing to modern units, he's a little bit punchier than, not by much, but a little bit punchier than Ivan and Iskander, and a little less punchy than Kets, and Oz. It's pretty close up at the top. For HP-wise, though, he's a little further down the list, but again, not much. He is same HP value as Iskandar, just under Ivan. So pretty bold in there, but he stacks up a little bit better than some of the other offensive SSR Riders. So a fairly balanced result. You know, Riders, of course, have super high star absorb. He's no exception. They have decent star generation. It's all there. So hit counts and stuff, pretty normalized. He's got a deck we normally associate with, or I normally associate with archers. And other, you know, NP-focused, maybe, units, which is Quick, Arts, Buster. He's got 4-hit Quick, 3-hit Arts, 2-hit Buster, 4-hit Extras. So his NP charge per attack is 0.57. The Arts cards might be a little soft, but on those Quicks, that's going to be fairly decent gen for those, so AAQ or something will still get you what you want. Plus, he has other ways to get around it is also the thing. They kind of designed him with some bonuses, some buffs in mind, I think. So, fairly standard stat-wise, you know, decent spreads everywhere. His NP, which is the chariot of his many NPs, guess what? All of his things are NPs. He doesn't use any of his normal-ass servant skills. Even his Bond CE is his 5th Noble Phantasm that's not used yet. But yeah, Troias Tragoidia? I'm not always great at the Greek. So, this is basically what you want out of a quick NP. It increases your quick strength for 1 turn. Kind of like what Rider Kentucky does. So NPQQ will have boosted quicks. It starts at 20%, and it does AoE damage to all enemies with 5 hits. Decent amount of hits. He's also got a big riding buff. It's A+, so he will get a lot of effectiveness out of those quick cards. Spoilers. Also, quick has the higher damage multipliers inherently because it's got no... Well, okay. So I should clarify that because that can be a little confusing. So... Inherently, quick cards, period, have the lowest modified damage. I think your first quick card is actually like 90% damage or something. It's bad. But as a result, quick NPs have higher inherent damage modifiers because, so they start at like, for an AoE, starts at like 600%. Whereas a Buster will be at like 300%, quick is I think 400%, which technically because of their inherent damage multipliers is about the same amount of damage. So... Quick can be pretty punchy. It's got a decent number of hit counts. It increases his inherent quick strength. Very basic, but hey, you're doing a wave clears probably with AoE. But because of the quick buff, you might be using him to, like I said, NPQQ chain, follow up on a boss. So first up, his first skill is Comet Running Form A+. This is a pretty standard buff. So this increases his crit strength and his critical card. His quick card effectiveness for 3 turns each, 20 to 30% 5-turn cooldown. So we, on the channel, we in general, I'm using the royal we here, have talked about quick before and what it kind of needs, right? Achilles is a very good example of not necessarily the super most interestingest way to handle quick, but definitely a very boilerplate one, which is just give yourself a couple turns, because quick almost always needs, it's kind of like arts in that way. Arts is usually over multiple turns, that's why arts servants naturally slot into stall teams very well. It's partially because of the way some of those arts servants are built, but also just the way arts works is, well, I'll just keep poking you until I can NP again. Whether that's a support NP or a damaging NP. So quick is kind of the same way, only it's not, I'm going to poke you until I can NP again. I'm going to poke you with quick cards 1 turn, and then I'm going to turn that around into crits. Crits the next turn. Which you need multi-turn buffs for. So Achilles' first skill handles this very robustly. Up to 30% quick up to 30% critical up. Gives him a decent spread of bonuses for your follow-up turn after you have like an NP swing turn or something. Right? Got it? Okay. So, his second skill, aka NP, is Amaranth of the Brave. This is his actual invincibility NP. This is pretty basic. You get 2 hits of invincible lasting 5 turns, and you increase your defense for 3 turns, 10 to 20%. The 10 to 20 is not great, but it's over a few turns. It's only got a 5-turn cooldown, though. Which means that basically you can always be benefiting to this skill to the maximum possible. If it runs out, if you don't use your invincibles, if the skill is level 10, you get to immediately proc the buff again. Otherwise, 2 times 5 turns is a pretty decent spread for invincible. Like, if you're soloing, most big bad enemies will hit you 3 times, so that's not great. But if you're in a comp where you're using support, which you probably should be, you can entirely possibly tank those. At the very least, it will blunt the edge of a major blow. Like, you can suck up an NP or something. And in general, I think a combination of hard and soft defense is, a little bit of def increase and then that solid invincibility is good. Because you never know. Enemies have Pierce Invul sometimes and it sucks. But it's a decent one. And then his third skill, which is the spear thing. So this is a fun one. This mimics his little arena spear thing he does in Apocrypha. It's that NP. So first off, you apply taunt to yourself for 1 turn. Target focus, 500% chance. So technically you can whiff it, but it's 500%. It's really hard to. You increase your NP gain. So a little bit like Mash's taunt. So you increase your NP gain, which I believe applies to being hit as well a little bit. And then you pop taunt on yourself. And also he has a self-invul and a taunt. They're on separate skills, but they're great. You increase your NP gain by 20 to 30%, I should specify, for 1 turn. And then you increase your NP gauge 20 to 30% just straight battery. This is pretty good. One, because of that added NP gain, you're not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to immediately battery into my NP. You can be, okay, I'm going to shave off 20 to 30% of my bar, or shave the difference, however you want to look at it, to scooch that up, and then I'll get the rest through NP gain. Or you can use it to battery into your NP. I'm going to buff up my NP gain because Quick does that, and then I'm going to hit really hard with my powerful Quicks. And then the enemy's going to come at me, and I'm going to shrug it off because I've got an invul. This works very well with future units, Scotty, who can buff crits and NP gain on Quick. So, I don't know if Achilles has the right gain stats or hit counts or whatever for full-blown Scotty loops, right? But he definitely fits well into that niche in that he will be able to get very decent NP gain, whether it's from his, all-in NP turn where his Quicks are really popping, and you've increased your NP gain. Or if you're going to turn that around and be like Arts crits, because he's a Rider, so he has very big star weight. And of course, you can always, just soak up the invincible and be like, yeah, I'm going to taunt invul, and then you're going to hit me, and I'll get NP that way. It's a fairly robust kit, which, while not necessarily anything brand new, brings definitely some things to Riders, right? Like, a lot of your major AoE Riders are all about that big NP swing. Like, that is just what Drake is about. Drake is just about a big NP swing, and then, I don't know, probably she gets to use Buster crits at the end because she's the fucking Rider, right? But not necessarily have any skills to support that second bit, other than that, Pioneer of the Stars gives you stars instantly. But still, it's fairly basic into the swing, right? I have to double check his stats, but I believe Iskandar is the same, isn't he? Yeah, he's Charisma, Tactics, and then an NP steroid. So, yeah, it's a very similar move. Ivan's a little bit different. He has some things to do that effect, but also he has a hard defense himself, Supreme Authority, which, like I said, it does some really interesting stuff with buff script and that stuff. But overall, Achilles here has a really decent put-together kit that works for Quick. If you want to use a servant offensively with Quick and you want to back him up, you want to run him with Alexander for team Quick buffs, stuff like that. He can definitely, give you the offensive power you need, give you the star generation you need, and also just give you a guy who can soak some hits, because, as I mentioned, he has purple there. He has a pretty decent HP pool, and he has a taunt and an invul. That invul, by the way, with a very, very quick turnaround time. 5 turns on, even if it's only 2 hits, 5 turns on an invul. Ooh, spicy. So it passes really quick. We mentioned writing A+, so those quick cards hit pretty hard. He does have Divinity C, so he punches up a little bit in his weight class. And he has Magic Resistance C, so he can shed some buffs decently. Or shed some debuffs, I should say. So he can be a little more resilient to debuffing, which is good for your car-focused attacker, and he doesn't have any debuff cleanse or anything. That is another thing Ivan is pretty secure in doing. But yeah, so that's overall look at the mechanics. I do want to mention his Bond CE. We don't normally do that, just because that's a lot of frickin' work. But I do want to mention it just because I said that all of his things are NPs. His Bond level is his shield, which gives him 30% NP strength and gives him 1 hit of invincible while he's on the field, which is pretty funny. You might actually use such a thing. Who knows? But alright, so let's talk about some other synergy stuff. So, obviously, like I said, future stuff, but he's a quick, so you can combo him with Scotty. I know it's a little weird, but you can combo him with Alexander as a pocket support, because Alexander has Charisma C and a 20% 3-turn quick buff to go on top of that stuff. And his NP generates large amounts of critical stars to kind of turn that around. And he's got a charm, and also eventually that will remove buffs. That's a future update. I believe that's not in yet. Is it in already? Shit, I gotta double check this stuff. It's so hard to double check what's current and not in NA stuff sometimes, but that's the thing. Let me know if he's actually gotten his Fair Youth buff. I don't know if he has, because I think we only have his first rank up, which is the one that gives him his third skill, which is the Team Quick. Depending on what nodes you're fighting, you can always maybe try out Asakabe Hime, because she's got she's got a targetable battery, which is pretty good, and increases critical star drop rate for an ally, which is funny. Her ability increases her NP is by default quick up for 3 turns, starting at 30%, which is pretty good, and then max HP defense, soft him up kind of thing. Just in general, anybody who helps with quick stuff will fit in here, and of course, then there's your classic waivers. Also, speaking of future units, that's like a year out, because that's next year's collab, but there is also Sima Yi, who will be a 5-star rider, who's got, the kind of rider version of waiver is how she works out. Sima Yi Renez, including giving more invulnerables. So that's not directly any kind of color card, but definitely has some really interesting abilities to work on enemies and buff your allies. That'll also be in class, so you don't have to worry about, well, I'm a rider, so I'm usually bullying casters. I don't want to bring Asakabe Hime because she'll get blasted or something. CE support. Okay, well, he's got a 20% battery, so you can K-scope him. He's an AoE, so that's great for farming stuff. You can, that's kind of a waste of his taunt to do that, so you should keep that in mind, but you can totally just K-scope him, fire him up, get him in there. Use that, go on. Another one, though, is, and also because it's maxes out at 30%, I believe you can use MLB Imaginary Round. That's 75, I think. I should double check that sometime. Sorry, I'm punching doors right now. So checking some of the stuff internally is more complex. Anyway, it's still, that's a thing you can do as an alternate if you don't want to use a K-scope on him. Other than that, the simple strats, he doesn't have a 50% battery, so unless you're comboing with Waver, I don't know if you want to go whole hog and be like, oh, Golden Sumo, oh, Halloween Princess. So in general, the thing you're probably going to be looking for is quick or NP. Holy Star Knight, which improves quick and crits, that's a good one. Anything that improves NP. Is there a quick and NP? There must be one. I just don't know it off the top of my head. That's why we give general advice, because there's a lot of CEs in this game, and sometimes you forget some of the less common ones that immediately spring to mind, Decapitating Bunny, if you have it, is also probably good, because that's the thing we should note about his kit, is he doesn't really have any piercing ability. So if you run into any enemies who use evades or anything, you might have some trouble with that. Decapitating Bunny, would take care of that, and also improve his quicks. So quicks crit, maybe his NP strength a little bit, and overall you've got your unit. So let's talk about his rarity. So obviously, like I mentioned, he is permanent. That's cool. That means that you don't have to worry about only rolling him on specific rate ups, but it still can be a problem to roll a permanent unit, right? So let's look at his available things. So obviously, he's going to be available in the whole spread for APOC coming up. The Chaldea Boys Collections banner, basically, because there's a whole rate up for Moriarty returns, but also it, I believe, will have, they're not on, are they on rate up? Yes, okay, they rotate through. Yeah, rotate, okay, there we go, I see it. Sorry, it took me a second to look at the graphics. Yes, so Achilles will be in the next year's Chaldea Boys Collection, and the one after that, because that's part of the road up. He is a male SSR. That's how that happens. So that's a big deal. He also, let's see, it was relatively new, so I don't know if I got any. Sorry, I'm annoyed because I'm checking websites for stuff, but unfortunately, one of the one of the FGO wikis has basically the same 4 letters as the actual FGO site, so I often end up going to one when I want to go to the other. And it's really annoying. Does this one not feature a way to check their rate-ups? Oh, that's really annoying. Well, so it's hard for me to double-check, but I believe Achilles is on Atlantis, Lost Belt 5 Part 1, Banner 2. That'll be late next year. And then he should be on the APOC rerun because literally everybody was there. So you've got, 4 or 5 opportunities to roll him, not counting any other breakouts. And he is permanent, obviously. But if you want to get a good one in, this is his only rate up this year, is the original APOC run. But he will get a decent amount of love in the future, in the next couple of years. Alright, I think that about wraps everything up, everybody. This video is a little long, though there's obviously editing and stuff. But Achilles has a lot to talk about, Not only is there the mechanical stuff I mentioned, he's a refreshingly well-designed, fairly straightforward, quick AoE unit, but he's a new permanent rider in the AoE slot. Sorry, I've been talking a lot. I'm thirsty. I gotta drink. Hydrate, kids. And also, he's very popular. He's a cool guy. His voice actor is a huge fan of Fate. Loves to show up to events, I believe. And in general, they got a lot. He's a fun unit, and they kind of teased him a little bit, so it's good to finally get him in the game, especially as he is such a famous classical Greek hero. But I will go ahead and leave you guys. We're done here with all that stuff. So, hey, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a like. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section down below. You can also hit up our Discord. That link is on our channel page and in the description as always. And of course, if you're new here and haven't already, please subscribe to our channel to get all of our latest videos, including more Wanteds. You can also hit that bell for notifications so you always know when we post a new video. It's a kind of a big deal. It's fun. And also when we stream, we do that. So check that out. And like it says at the front of the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can access this episode early, lots of other stuff, and it helps us out a lot. Alright, so I'm going to let you guys go. Shoot. Is next Wanted gonna be Gouda Gouda? I have to double check my schedule, but I think it might be. So stay tuned for some fun stuff when that comes around. Alright, I'm out. Have fun with your sprint self.